Welcome to The Explainer. If you're a corporate training manager, an L&D pro, or an HR leader, you already know the landscape has completely shifted lately. Today, we're diving into the absolute gold standard, mastering true hybrid training delivery. We're going to unpack the exact best practices you need to keep both your in-room and your remote participants fully engaged, equally valued, and, well, actually learning.
So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the hybrid training illusion, then look at essential tech and venues. After that, designing the perfect room, engaging two audiences equally, and finally, foolproof preparation and testing.
All right, let's jump straight into part one, the hybrid training illusion.
We really need to start by calling out a massive shared frustration in the training world right now. It's this illusion that just slapping a web link onto a physical meeting room suddenly makes it hybrid training. I mean, you've probably sat through one of those, right? It almost always leaves someone out in the cold. So let's define it properly. True hybrid training is a live learning session delivered simultaneously to people in a physical room and people joining online. We have to separate this from purely virtual training, where everyone's online, or blended learning, which mixes live and self-paced stuff. Real hybrid training? It means designing for two totally distinct audiences at the exact same time.
And that brings us to a huge mindset shift. The source material nails this with a great quote. Attempting to add remote participants to an existing classroom agenda at the last minute usually creates an uneven experience. I mean, to put it bluntly, you can't just bolt remote users onto a traditional in-person plan as an afterthought. It just doesn't work. Your training literally has to be built from the ground up with both audiences in mind to make sure everyone gets equal access to the content and the instructions.
So before you even book a room, you've got to stop and ask yourself, is hybrid actually the right format for this specific learning outcome? Now, hybrid training is absolutely brilliant for shared sessions and cutting down on travel costs, but it requires way more complex facilitation. On the flip side, running separate sessions is honestly much easier on the facilitator's cognitive load, and it's definitely the way to go if your training involves hands-on equipment or really intensive physical interactions. You just have to be strategic before you start building.
Okay, moving on to section 2, essential tech and venues. Now that we've shattered that illusion, let's look at the foundational layer that will literally make or break your session, the tech and the space itself. Here is the absolute golden rule of hybrid training. Audio quality is way more important than video quality. Seriously, think about it. A remote participant might forgive a weird, unflattering camera angle, but if they can't hear what's going on, they're going to disconnect, mentally first and then probably literally. Unclear sound is without a doubt the fastest way to tank a session.
Because audio is that critical, your gear setup has to cover the whole shebang. It's not just about slapping a lapel mic on the presenter. Remote participants need to hear the room discussions, the spontaneous questions, the natural banter. If they don't, they're not really part of the room. So you're looking at lapel or lectern mics for the speaker, absolutely, but also table or ceiling microphones to capture the audience, plus high-quality speakers in the room so those remote voices come through loud and clear.
Beyond the audio, the venue setup itself has to be bulletproof. We're talking professional cameras, multiple presentation screens, heavy-duty internet capacity, a rock-solid conferencing platform, and, this is a big one, on-site technical support. Using purpose-built venues, like Carson's for instance, who have spaces across multiple cities, can be a real game-changer here. They provide all that integrated tech and, crucially, that on-site tech support to jump in when those inevitable last-minute connectivity hiccups happen.
Right? Let's dive into section 3, designing the perfect room.
Designing the perfect room isn't just about making things look pretty. It's about drastically reducing the cognitive load on your facilitator. They need to be teaching, not running a complex AV desk, you know? So sightlines and lighting are huge. As a presenter, you have to stand where the camera sees you clearly, which means no standing in front of bright, glaring windows that turn you into a shadowy silhouette. But the real secret sauce here? Screen placement. You need a setup where you can see the online participants, the chat, and your slides without ever turning your back on the physical room. Constantly breaking eye contact with the room to check a monitor completely shatters the flow.
And it's important to remember that every single room layout comes with its own trade-offs. It's kind of like a giant puzzle. Take a U-shaped layout, for example. It is phenomenal for group engagement and letting the facilitator work the whole room. But the catch? Getting proper microphone coverage to capture everyone speaking from those different angles requires very careful planning. Or look at cabaret style. Great for small group work, but inevitably some people might end up with their backs to the cameras. The takeaway here is that you really have to match the layout to your specific learning objectives.
Moving right along to Section 4, engaging two audiences equally. This is really the climax of the whole operation, live execution. You have got to treat your remote attendees as active, vital members of the group. They are not just sitting at home watching a TV show of your in-room event. To pull this off, you need a hyper-detailed agenda. Take a look at how this maps out. At every single minute, it tracks what the in-room folks are doing, right alongside what the remote folks are doing. So, at 10 a.m., while the physical room is having a table discussion, the remote participants aren't just twiddling their thumbs. They are grouped in online breakout rooms. You have to continuously orchestrate for both audiences at the exact same time.
We all know that long blocks of one-way lecturing cause massive screen fatigue, especially for the remote crowd. So, best practice? Change the activity or ask for input every 10 to 20 minutes. Keep them on their toes with live polls, shared digital whiteboards, and inclusive breakout activities. Also, I cannot advocate strongly enough for using a dedicated hybrid moderator. Having someone there to manage the chat, elevate remote questions, and troubleshoot the tech literally frees up the facilitator to do what they do best: actually facilitate.
As the facilitator, you are the bridge between these two worlds. You've got to acknowledge your remote participants by name and make a habit of looking directly into the camera lens. Oh, and never allow side conversations in the room that the online folks can't hear. That's a guaranteed way to make them feel excluded. And always repeat in-room questions before you answer them so the digital crowd actually has the context. Also, give them just a little extra response time, for people frantically fumbling for their mute buttons. You really have to physically and verbally bridge that gap.
Okay, let's wrap things up with Section 5, foolproof preparation and testing.
Look, none of these incredible facilitation tricks matter if the tech fails on you. So we're landing on the meticulous prep and testing you need to make sure this complex choreography actually works on the day. And I have to warn you, just checking to see if a laptop turns on is not a test, not even close. You have to test the actual setup in the actual room using the exact presenter device you'll use on the day. Run the platform with all your media and sound, and most importantly, you absolutely must have someone join online to test the remote perspective. They need to verify that the audio is crystal clear, the slides are readable, and they can actually hear the room discussions.
To keep all this organized, use a chronological countdown checklist. 2 weeks out, confirm numbers, lock in accessibility requirements, and send out those joining links. The day before, save your backup files, review the run sheet, and click all your links to make sure they work. And right before people walk through the door, test the cameras again, check screen sharing, have your files open, and get your breakout rooms prepped. Chunking these responsibilities into an actionable timeline like this will save you from so much last-minute panic.
Even with the best checklist, fatal errors do happen. Relying on a single laptop microphone for a whole room? Total disaster. Ignoring the online chat? That just makes remote users feel completely invisible. Failing to capture room questions leaves your digital attendees totally lost. And skipping a full rehearsal or showing up without a backup plan, like dial-in details or printed instructions, will instantly unravel your entire session the exact second a digital tool glitches.
So how do we actually measure success once it's all over? Well, it's definitely not just about attendance. You want to look at knowledge check results and completed action plans. But the most important metric by far, the differences between the remote and in-room experiences. You absolutely must collect feedback separately from each audience. If you just lump all the survey data together, you might completely miss the fact that the in-room group had a blast while the remote group couldn't hear a single thing and just suffered quietly.
Which brings us to our final thought for today. Are you really designing your next training session for two distinct audiences? Or are you just broadcasting to one and crossing your fingers that the other follows along? Hybrid training gives us incredible reach and flexibility, for sure, but it demands highly intentional design and seamless execution. So challenge your L&D teams and your training providers to rethink their approach, leverage these best practices, and build environments where everyone, no matter where they're sitting, has an equal seat at the table. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and good luck with your next session.